Dr. Seth Jenny. He is an assistant professor at Slippery Rock University out in Pennsylvania. Dr. Seth, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I told you before we got into this, I didn't tell you how I was going to slightly embarrass you, but I am going to embarrass you a little bit right off the bat. There are very few people who I have Twitter alerts on for when they post things. You are one of the very few people. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 people who I do this with. You are one of the few who I do that with. And it is because the amazing research that you find, and I find that you know, and this is kind of where we're getting at today. Yeah. The hardest things to find is quality research right now around esports and education and how esports is being studied. And you are kind of one of those people who I think does a really good job. While your focus is in physical education and health, I think you do a really good job of reading between the lines in some studies, and the things that you share that are key things to read or consider. I do. So I want to thank you first off for being such a valuable resource to the esports EDU community.
I appreciate that. Not everything I share is, I would say, quality research. You definitely don't take any, a headline for its word, which I know you know, but I'm sure not all your listeners know. Read all the methodology, the full text, but a lot of times I just like to post things to stimulate more discussion and interest. But a little tip on that is I have a Google Scholar alert, and I get notifications of esports specific research, and specifically a lot of the ones that I post are when people cite my own research, mostly esports research. So yeah, that's how sort of that comes about before I post it.
But looking at your history and your background, I mean, you started off best I can tell, you started off as a PE teacher down in Columbia, Illinois.
Oh yeah, yep, health and PE, you got it. Which
for a lot of people don't know, that's down near St. Louis. I've lived around the Chicago area, and everything is downstate. Like, not just things south, but anything west is downstate. So like Rockford is downstate, which is actually straight west of Chicago. But how did you find yourself at Columbia going into and again finding this transformation to where now again you're assistant professor at Slippery Rock and doing research into something that is so brand new at this moment?
Yeah, so right now I'm in the Department of Exercise and Rehabilitative Sciences, but to answer your question, how I got to Columbia, Illinois, it relates to yesterday. Yesterday was Veterans Day. My wife was an active duty Air Force physician.
Oh, okay.
And so she was stationed at Scott Air Force Base and did her residency there in Belleville, Illinois, at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And so while she was there, I worked as a health and physical education teacher, K through 12. And then we were there for 3 years, and then we got an assignment in Turkey. So I became a U.S. Air Force exercise physiologist for 2 years and was the fitness program manager of Incirlik Air Base while my wife was stationed there. And then I wanted to start on my doctoral degree, so we requested her be stationed in Albuquerque at Kirtland Air Base, and I did my doctoral degree at the University of New Mexico. And then I taught at Winthrop University in South Carolina in the physical education, exercise and sport performance department there, and now I'm up at Slippery Rock. So it's been around the block, getting into video gaming and esports. When I was at New Mexico, I started doing motion-based video gaming research and to what extent you can learn about sport through playing video games. And I started with doing exergaming. When I went to Winthrop, I started doing empirical research looking at the more what we might call sedentary sport video games like Madden. And one of my first main research studies was to what extent can you learn about football from playing Madden? And I used a sample of international students. And so I had one experimental group who actually played 8 30-minute sessions of Madden and another control group that didn't do any gaming. And we looked at what are the cognitive improvements of knowing the knowledge of American football, which most of them didn't know much about at all. And the group that played the Madden improved their score by nearly 10% on the post test. And it was mixed methods, so we did a focus group at the end. And what was really interesting to me is things that wasn't easily captured on a knowledge test was they felt like the international students felt more connected to American culture because they knew more about football, and they could go to Buffalo Wild Wings and watch the Super Bowl and actually have an idea of what's going on to cheer for it, because they had a much greater understanding of you get 4 downs, you have to go 10 yards, those types of things, where when they watched it before, they had no idea. So, and then in 2016, whenever these varsity esports programs started to develop and they started offering scholarships, is when I sort of made the transition to doing research more focused on competitive gaming and esports, particularly with sport management professors.
It's funny you say that about football, because I'll tell you, one of the ways that I learned about hockey was NHL '94.
Yeah.
I grew up in California. I loved playing the San Jose Sharks. I was a fan of very much. I was following them in high school when they first started up in the 91-92 season. But as a California kid, you don't grow up with a whole lot of hockey, even though my father's a New Yorker and we would sit and watch the games. You don't really catch what's going on. But like things like a 2-line pass or what is offsides, or, those are things that aren't common language for a kid who grows up in the Bay Area. So it was something that was taught, that I learned through that. And also rugby, some of the rules of rugby.
Yep.
Again, it's not a high profile sport here in the United States. There's a good club culture around it, but nothing professional. Oh, there is professionals, but it's a step up from club, we shall say. Mm-hmm. But again, the ideas of backward passing, what is a ruck, what is a maul, what is offsides, again, a lot of the same things that I'm sure international students carry. So that's a really interesting study in and of itself.
My kids, even in the backyard, they play Madden, and they're telling me like what routes they're running. And where'd you learn that? The name of, you're running a post or whatever. And I'm like, oh, we learned that from Madden, Dad. And I did a replication study with American students looking, and they played Don Bradman cricket. So they increased their cricket knowledge through playing the video game, which was really neat. We also looked at intentions to actually play the sport physically from the video gaming experience. And we found that through video gaming, it does increase your perceptions and your intentions to watch it as well as play it later. Another example study I did was looking at to what extent doing a motion-based video game rock climbing, Kinect Sports Rivals rock climbing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's on the Xbox Kinect.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you have to like reach up and then clasp your hand to grab the handholds. And really what was amazing for that particular study that we found out mainly from the focus groups was the perception of when you're playing the video game. We had them compare it from the video game version to a real rock climbing wall, and whether they thought you could use the video game as a teaching tool to teach people how to rock climb. And they said that the perspective of the video game, when you're on a rock wall for real, the wall's right in front of your face. Right. Well, these are all novel climbers. They've never climbed before. And so when you're playing in the video game version, it is a much zoomed out version where you see the entire wall. And one of the things that the participants mentioned is that they really learned about route selection through the video game, because they could see that the best route might not be directly straight up, which is what they thought when they actually did the real version of climbing. But when they played the video game, they could see more of the handholds and know, hey, I need to go left or right or diagonal before I go up, because that's my best route selection. So there's a lot of different uses with gaming, and that was really an interesting finding in that particular study.
Boy, that makes a whole lot of sense too. And I guess too, as far as teaching goes and simulation, I mean, let's take sports out of it. Let's make it like you said, rock climbing still an athletic activity, but the understanding, or I guess the nuances that you kind of pick up, or some of the deeper understandings of whatever it is that you're doing, this can easily be translated into other things. It can be easily translated into virtual reality, which we know, of course, is when we talk about what are going to be ways that not only we can teach people how to do something, but also therapies that are going to be available through virtual reality. It gives a lot of hope and a real interesting topic for a lot of people to study.
And provides opportunities for people who may not have access to a climbing gym, so potentially inner city youth who maybe lack particular resources, or they don't have to be inner city, or people with disabilities that maybe wouldn't be able to climb on a wall because of a lower extremity injury or disease. And so now they can experience rock climbing in the virtual realm, which is pretty unique.
I was going to say kids in Columbia, Illinois, we are nowhere near a mountain or a rock, I mean, there's places you can, but again, you said you started to see in 2016 this shift into esports. And I think that's about 2014-15 was the time that I really started to realize, like, oh my gosh, there's a good potential here. And in fact, changing my own dissertation work from looking at virtual learning spaces into esports and esports culture. But how do you then, start to, as again, a researcher who's focused in physical education, how do you then start to make the shift into like, hey, by the way, I want to start looking more at this competitive game structure? Because I'm sure that there were people maybe in your department who are like, what do you mean video games? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so that is continually being I don't know about obstruction is the right word, but it's something where you have to do a lot of explaining when it comes to talking to people from the physical education field, in particular exercise science, where video gaming is seen as something that causes obesity. And so why would you be doing research in that area, or why would you be giving attention to something that could potentially be one of the root causes of the obesity epidemic? And so, the other thing that people, if they don't understand or appreciate the skill level involved in high competitive gaming, esports, then they don't appreciate it as well. It's the same thing when you somebody who's watching soccer, particularly an American who doesn't know much about soccer, they're not going to want to watch a 1-0 game, 1-0 game, because they typically are not appreciating the skill level involved in the passes and the throw-ins and all the different aspects of the game. And it's the same thing with video gaming, where if people don't have any experience with gaming and they don't understand the requirements to game at a high level, then they typically look down upon it. And so it's a little bit difficult, but one of the reasons I did get into motion-based gaming was because it's technology related, and people tend to want to throw money at technology for grants and for research. And so that is one of the reasons why I went in that direction as well.
Well, and here's the other thing too about all this, and Dr. Lindsay Migliore said this on the podcast a few weeks ago, where she said, and it isn't just for the gamers. I think it's for us in academia as well too. If we don't take this seriously, who will? If we don't put the serious exclamation point on what we are doing is serious research. It isn't just about, again, video games. And it's baffling to me that you have to explain to a group of people who in their mind believe, without any empirical research other than what they are seeing of this must be sedentary. It's interesting that they would necessarily have to push back on it, but there's also things that can be misperceived in the research that we do. I know that there was some people who, when Stanford University did a study about high level chess players and how they burn 6,000 calories a day, and they when they go into tournaments, they lose weight because they're burning so many calories. And again, it is kind of like how you led off with, it's important to look at the research, to look at the study and realize that's not a good thing in that study, because what they were finding was the reason why those people were burning 6,000 calories a day wasn't because of respiratory, it's because they were stressed. Like they were so hyper stressed out, and they realized they had to change how they exercise and lead up to these events, where they know that because their brain is going at so many different levels, and again they're on a such a higher plane, that 6,000 calorie burn isn't a good thing. That is a like, oh my gosh, it's the end of days and I'm trying to survive kind of burn. So
there's more and more research that is looking at the physiology of esports players and looking at heart rates and the cognition and the fine motor movements and those types of characteristics of gamers. And so we're sort of in its infancy right now of that type of research, and that's some of the stuff that I'm doing right now too.
Well, I know too that it started to become I don't want to call it like a fashion trend or anything, but that recently there was a couple of smartwatches that came out that were for gamers, and it's like, and I'm like, wait, is checking your heart rate and your respiration, doesn't an Apple Watch already do this? Doesn't a Fitbit in some form do this? I mean, there's a lot of those.
That's marketing, but I do think some of those things can be beneficial, especially where you're tracking sleep and recovery and type of thing, where it should be seen more as a lifestyle than it's only going to be used for while I'm gaming. I think it's tracking more statistics across the entire day than just when you're gaming.
Well, that sleep part is important too. Even yesterday, I read a study, and again, check the sources, but read a study that showed that sleeping half a night contributes to high levels of anxiety and high levels it can accentuate, high levels of anxiety and high levels of PTSD if it's manifested in the person. Mm-hmm. Which I know for a lot of our scholar gamers, especially at the young levels, we're trying to say, hey, don't do these 2-3 hour sleep a night things. You really need your full night's sleep, because a lot of times the kids that we are dealing with or working with in education are coming to us with high anxiety. They are coming to us with adverse childhood experiences, which could be manifested into a post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. So that kind of messaging around like, hey, track your sleep, know what quality of sleep you're getting. You know, are you actually getting REM sleep, which is going to help?
Yeah.
I think that's all. This research is just so exciting,
Yeah, keep a log, and I was a collegiate cross country and track athlete, and we'd always deal with stress and worried about the race the night before, and it's normal if you lose some sleep the night before a major competition, whether it's running or esports. But if it's a chronic thing where you're continually in sleep deficit, that's when you're going to run into major health issues, because you're not getting enough sleep that your body requires on a consistent basis.
Right. And again, as we're finding is because you've been one of the people who early in this hopefully what will be something that becomes a cultural institution within our schools, as much as football, as much as a drama club or a band or anything like that. You've also, I think, taken a very bold step when it comes to focusing on research in esports, specifically around the International Journal of Esports. You're a founding member, or I guess, I don't know if you're a founding member, but you're definitely on the editorial board. What is that journal for people who may not even know of its existence at this moment?
So the International Journal of Esports was created by Aaron Koshi and Professor Andy Mia in England, and I'm on the editorial board along with you, James, and there's a lot of scholars on there. It's there.
I'm like a week in, so I'm still figuring it all out.
It is a platform in which esports academics, and when I say academics, you don't have to be somebody who's been conducting research for years upon years, because there's other various options of publishing within that journal, but it provides a platform in which you can present your esports related research to not just academia, but it's open access, meaning that anybody who goes on the website can access the articles, the full text articles. And so we're hoping to also draw the eyes of industry, the media, pretty much the whole esports ecosystem, so that they can we can share research with not just other researchers, but with anybody who's interested in esports. And so we had our first issue a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I co-wrote one of those publications on questioning the valuation of the esports industry. And so in the paper, we valued the industry at just under 25 billion, when the majority of people will cite Newzoo's statistic of 1.1 billion. So I encourage you to take a look at that paper and see if you think that you agree or you think we're full of BS.
Well, and that's the great thing too. Again, as somebody who's working on his dissertation right now and muddling through, it feels like it's a never-ending thing, especially when you're working a full-time job and doing everything else. But the hard thing is again, especially with something that is so niche right now, again, reading between the lines, finding where those things are. But yeah, there isn't a journal just for this, unfortunately. Well, there is now, but I mean, before it was like you really had to dig into a lot of things. And this is what I can't stand. I really hate this. I'll tell you, this is what I hope for the journal. I don't have to read an article about esports ever again that has the entire history of esports on the first 15 pages. Like, and what I love reading about the history of esports is how everybody has a completely different story about the start, beginning, where we are about esports at that moment.
Stanford University, and whatever. This was the award at the first. That's especially at conferences now, because that was like the first 10-15 minutes of a conference presentation is trying to explain to people what esports is. And so it's great to now these esports specific conferences are popping up, and you can actually dig into the content of what you're actually wanting to present, not just trying to explain why you should pay attention and providing all these stats about this is all the people that are watching esports and this is what the industry is worth, so they understand that now. So there is another journal which obviously I feel strongly about the International Journal of Esports, but there's a new one that's called the International Journal of Esports Research. It's by IGI Global.
Wait, I'm just laughing. Wait, hold on.
Yes.
I'm only laughing because all I hear in that is, I don't know if you ever saw Monty Python's The Life of Brian, but all I'm hearing is, we're not the People's Front of Judea, we're the Judean People's Front.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, that's for those people who are Monty Python fans, I hope you got a chuckle from that. So
I don't know much about that journal, but I do know, I believe that one you even have to pay to publish within that journal, like a significant amount of money. And they also spell esports with a lowercase e. So I will leave it at that.
Well, you mean with a capital S?
Yes.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we all know. Okay. All right. We'll just leave it at that then.
Yeah.
We don't need to go down that dark rabbit hole. But, again, it is something, it should be exciting for us as people who are involved in this field. And what I love about the editorial board as I look through it, it's not just educators. I think you and I might be the only teachers, like grade school teachers at one time on the board. Everybody else is, again, varied. We got health, industry, science, social studies. It seems like there's a little bit of everything there on the board.
And it's global too. They're from Europe, Asia, North America. It's great.
Yeah. And again, for those of you who have never had to try to access academic journals, even if you're a college student, it can be a complete and total crapshoot. It can be just, you never know when you're going to hit a paywall or whether your school or university subscribes. And sometimes there's like 3 or 4 different ways you can get in. I love the fact that this is free and open. And again, it says, here's the research. We're putting it out there. Pay attention. This is important stuff. So
in 2000, my first esports specific paper, it was virtually athletes where esports fit within the definition of sport. That one, I think, was rejected to at least 5 or 6 journals until it finally hit in Quest. And since then, it's been cited several hundred times by other esports related publications. So my point is that it was difficult to get esports papers published several years ago because nobody knew where it should be. You know, the computer, should it be in computer science? Should it be in marketing? Should it be in sport management? Should it be in physical education? Where does it go? And so it really depended. You had to find an editor that had a video gaming background to think that it was worthwhile, and they had to foresee that things were trending in the direction of esports getting more popular. So it's a little bit easier now, and hopefully the International Journal of Esports will provide a nice home and a more streamlined approach for people trying to get publications and present their research.
Well, and I think too, you probably had the same experience because we kind of alluded to this before, of getting onto a conference, you know, being selected to speak. And I know this from 4 years ago, talking about esports at a conference, and 2 or 3 people walking in the room going, so is this about Spanish sports? Is this what is and what I love now is that the conversation, thankfully, for the most part, though we're still fragile, we're still young, there's still people who are ignorant to what this all is, and that's okay. It's not so much anymore of what the heck are you talking about? The questions I'm getting now is, ooh, tell me more about that. Mm-hmm. I think some people are starting to get that feeling. Are you starting to see that as well too, from people who are like, oh, like I've heard about that, tell me more about that? Is that your experience too?
For sure, yeah, and they're becoming more knowledgeable because it's becoming more mainstream. So, you know, with coverage by major networks like ESPN and TBS.
Well, not anymore with ESPN.
Oh, well, yeah, I did see that. They
cut their whole coverage department about it.
And that was just yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah. Surprising.
Yep, I did see that. But my point is, it has been in popular media now more often, and so people are becoming a little bit more knowledgeable, so they at least know what, when you say esports, what it means. Mm-hmm. But usually they lack the details of, you know, can they name a popular esports title? Probably not.
No. Well, and here's, to be honest too, I mean, I've spoken on this for many years, but until this summer, when I sat with somebody who could kind of talk me through the game as it was being played, League of Legends to me was almost a complete, like, I was not 100% sure about League of Legends and what you were supposed to. I knew like it was like a capture the flag kind of thing. It was a lot like chess, but still it felt very foreign to me until I could sit down with somebody who knew what was going on and can answer my questions in live as we were going through it. Mm-hmm. So outside of the fascinating study that you did around, you know, the transfer of information and interest from one sport, from playing the game to the sport itself, what has been, I guess, one of your other, has there been another aha that you're like, oh my gosh, this was kind of a cool thing that we found out in some of the research and studies that you've done?
That's a great question. I mean, I alluded to the other new recent publication on the market size of the valuation.
All right, let's talk about that. How did you get at 26? Let's see this. I mean, how do you go from 1.1 billion, which again, I don't like that Newzoo is an only source. I like that it is that it's at least focusing on it, but again, it's one source, and I don't like that everybody keeps going back to that one source. You know, we in research, we don't like just one source. But where do you go from 1.1 to 26 billion?
So that was research with Joseph Ahn and William Collis. They both co-founded an esports organization called Team Genji, and I think now it's called Oxygen Esports. But they both are Harvard MBAs, and Joseph On actually works for the Economic Policy Division with the Office of the President. No, probably not too much longer, but in other words, these are real smart guys that I connected with to write this paper. And so what we did is William has written a book, and in it he has the entire esports ecosystem model, and he breaks the esports industry into 6 different sectors. And so the first sector is teams, professionals, and streamers like pros. Second is game publishers. Third is streaming platforms. Fourth is products. Fifth is leagues and tournaments, and sixth is digital tools. So things that we use to play. And we provided mathematical equations and other statistics that are provided within each of those sectors, and then we totaled that all up and then provided that new $25 billion estimate. So yeah, that's how that sort of went. And I encourage you to take a look at that paper and see what you think. But we're not saying that Newzoo's bad. What we're saying is that we just want people to question what is the valuation of the industry. When Fortnite made nearly $2 billion, how is the industry only worth $1 billion? When investments are about a little over $1 billion in 2019, how are investments equal to what the revenue was? So it doesn't make sense. Some of those figures don't make sense.
And that's a good point too, because even in the esports EDU realm, there's companies that are operating who have raised 70, 80, $100 million.
Yeah.
So wait, you're meaning to tell me that they are worth 1/10 of the in what they've raised?
Yeah.
This company is 1/10 of the market. I can't believe that. So, but it is worth, like as you said. I think it's just, and it might just be because of definition. Again, Newzoo may be looking at it from just strictly from a professional, but again, if they're just doing that, they're missing out on this. I mean, forget the high school scene for a second. Just this week, it's middle school who is coming after me, who are saying, "Wait a second, we love that you're doing this in high schools. How can we do this in middle schools? Because we have gamers here too." And elementary is going, "Well, wait a second. We have gamers down here as well, and how do we build upon all this really good stuff that's going on?" So even in the education market in and of itself, I see at schools, as schools start to embrace this, the potential for tremendous growth just in that market alone, especially even if there's an economic downturn. Let's just say that there's a global depression. Schools are still going to stay in business. It's not going anywhere. School is going to still be there despite everything. So, because I know some people may say, well, there might be a bubble in the pro scene. Sure, pro scene. But if the pro scene popped today, doesn't impact schools a whole heck of a lot. So we'll still be here. So
For sure.
I don't know if you see that as well too in your study or anything like that.
And we take a broader definition of what esports is, and that's what also allowed it, provided a larger market size. And so we're not saying that ours is totally 100% accurate. We're saying that we feel that this is a better estimation.
Yeah. So where do you see your research leading you in the foreseeable future, we shall say?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on a paper about the global esports education degree programs. I presented research with Joey Gariziak of Shenandoah, which I think he's been on the show.
We've had Joey on, yep.
And then Nico Bessomes from the University of Paris.
Who has the most amazing photo of the esports ecosystem that I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. So we tapped into his skills for some of our maps and figures and things like that. But what we did is for 2 years, I've been collecting a list of institutions, higher ed institutions that are offering esports degree, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, certificate programs, minors, and we started to analyze and to see where these were housed, what's the focus area of these degrees, and So how we sort of one of the ways that we got into it was in this past May. There was a tweet out there by Staffordshire University there, and that's one of the schools that offers an esports degree program. And
so we've had Stuart Costers on here as well.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, somebody from this institution said soon working in esports will require a university degree. And then,
Really?
so that tweet lasted a few hours. It got a person named Decay retweeted it, said the F it will. I will battle until death until people against people who claim this BS. That he continues on, but that was liked 1.2 thousand times.
Goodness.
Yes, and so there seems to be a major disconnect between are these degree programs worthwhile and what is made up with them. If you know Adam Fitch, the esports journalist, then interviewed a Staffordshire University student who's in the program and asked him more questions about it. And so we really started to formulate this presentation. In 2018, Becker College was the first esports degree program in the U.S. Also, that's when Staffordshire started in the UK, and then Kajaani University of Applied Sciences in Finland in 2018. Those three all started their esports degree programs, and that's since 2018 is when most of these programs have increased. But there have been esports degree programs before that. I don't know if you know this.
No.
2004. Danube University Krems in Austria had a Master of Science in Esport and Competitive Computer Gaming.
Really?
Those doesn't exist anymore. 2007, Chanam Techno University in South Korea, a 2-year esports degree program. 2016, in Finland, Alum College, which is like a technical school, had an esports performance 1-year degree program. And so that was stuff that we found out once we started digging into it.
That is some really, it's amazing how we think everything is so new. But what did you say, Danube in Austria? What was that year, 2004?
2004. What I read was there was an American researcher who started the master's degree, and then when he left that institution, that program dissolved. But we in our analyses, we only included programs that used esports in the title, not video gaming, because we didn't want to confuse game design types of degrees. These are our esports degree programs. So when we look at it, we came across 72 total programs.
Wow.
So 6 technical diplomas, 29 bachelor's degrees. This is around the world, 13 master's degrees, and 24 certificates or minors.
Really wait.
Yes.
Wait.
This will be this will be published in the internet. Well, we'll be submitting it to a journal soon. You can guess where it may be submitted.
Yes.
But we want it to be open access because we really see it as a service to everybody who's involved in esports, because there's so many people that are reaching out that are asking questions about these degree programs. And then even, I think you alluded to in our previous conversations, where these people are wanting to do master's or doctoral degrees focused on esports. Where should they turn? Well, hopefully they're going to turn to this paper we get published so that they can take a look at some of these institutions that are offering these programs.
That's one thing I got to say about my program at Northern Illinois. The program is in instructional technology, so a PhD in instructional technology, and they've given me a ton of latitude to explore the topic. I mean, it's like, oh, okay, and you're expecting a little bit more pushback again because it's not something that's very prevalent in schools. But I think the people in my program get it. They're like, this is new stuff. This is not the same old that we've been doing before. This is all new stuff. With regards to the programs that you're finding, because this is the take that I have just from what I hear. And again, you've now studied the subject. Yeah. It feels more like things are around event management or business.
Correct.
Is that the heavy?
So load? when we analyze the focus areas, more than half of them would be business / esports management is usually the most commonly used degree title. Then the next most common would be media / communication focused. Then design. And sort of at the bottom, you get some of those other ones like performance coaching, hospitality management, esports law. Those are some of the tracks within some of those programs. But definitely business and management are by far the most common.
We had Justin Jacobson on as a lawyer who deals with esports clients. And to me, it's just such an interesting law program in that you're talking about the median age of the people who are pros, if you will, are going to be in that late teens to early 20s, which after that and before that, there's really not a whole heck of a lot. I mean, that's your sweet spot right there. And so again, you're potentially dealing with a lot of minors. You're dealing with families who don't even understand what their kids. It's not like dance moms or actor moms who are like, okay, we're going to be an actor, we're going to be a dancer, taking them to all tryouts and everything. This is, you could be a kid just in your living room, playing your games, streaming occasionally, and then somebody knocks on your door or contacts you over Discord or whatever and offers you a $40,000 contract. It's just so. Again, the degree programs are so interesting. Now, what type of universities or colleges, though? Because, there's flavors in that as well. I know Ohio State, for example, has a program. I think theirs is more...
Good. Google that right now, and I have yet to find it. You can only find news articles that talks about it going to start. I've yet to... and that's where some of these, it's difficult to do this type of research because they don't provide a ton of information on some of the websites. And then when you actually, everybody talks about the Ohio State program, but when you try to find it and you find the actual program on their website, I only find media articles on the Ohio State program. Now maybe something's changed since we looked, but
wait, hold on. I found something about their team.
Yes, correct.
And
some people, when you say, hey, we're starting an esports program, they think you're talking about a varsity club team, whatever that might be. And for this research, we're talking about academic programming, two totally separate things.
I am stunned.
Everybody who talks to me about academic esports, they always bring up Ohio State. And because
they made a huge deal out of it.
Yes, because everybody wants to announce they're starting an esports degree program and they want to call the media up and get all these media articles.
Yes.
When you hit the real world of higher ed and you've got 70 layers of approval to get programs going, it's difficult. So the majority of these programs are lesser name institutions that can move more quickly with approval processes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are private. In 2018, I helped co-create the multi-track degree program at Shenandoah, which I'm sure you know about with Joey.
Well, it is funny. So I Googled Ohio State Esports program.
Yeah.
Do you know what the first thing that came up? It was an ad.
Okay.
But it's the University of New Haven.
Oh yeah.
Masters in Esports degree, University of New Haven. They have created an ad on top of Ohio State.
Search engine optimization.
But wait, just think about this. Think about that.
Yeah.
Ohio State on a football field doesn't even take the field against the University of New Haven for fear that people will be hurt.
Yeah.
The University of New Haven will be hurt. Here, and this goes back to even a couple of weeks ago when I had on Callum Fletcher from Illinois Wesleyan.
Yeah.
Like he's competing against big schools and taking them down. And he says he feels like the clock is ticking, that eventually that they will catch up. But, you don't see a University of New Haven trumping a Ohio State University typically on most things. And again, that's great that you bring up because we see it with
Maryville University is another one. It's, they're not well known for their athletics, but they're doing pretty well in the esports space.
But the marketing is key in all this, okay? I can't tell. My news alert. You have a Scholar alert. I have a news alert set up just for esports.
Yeah.
And the esports alert is typically, oh, we opened our new arena. We know this school, whether it's a high school or a college. Oh, we opened our new arena. That's cool, but what are you going to do with it? Like, what is your program? Just the arena?
Well,
yeah.
I did want to touch upon, so what's the purpose of these programs? Because I think a lot of people, especially parents, if your kid came to you and said, hey, I'm going to go to Shenandoah or New Haven to major in esports, they're going to be like, what? And so what these programs, and obviously I don't know all of them intimately, but just from what the research that I've done, the majority of them appear to be using esports as a vehicle to teach transferable skills in the focus area of the degree. So if it's an esports marketing degree, then you're learning marketing skills so that you know the ins and outs, hopefully, of esports, but you could also get a job in marketing outside of esports. Mm-hmm. Same with coaching, same with communication, same with management. So they're trying to teach transferable skills, but through the lens of esports, which is hopefully improving upon the learning process because the student is very interested in esports.
Intrinsically motivated. That's where my self-determination theory. Exactly exactly the reasons why we talk about bringing esports into our high schools is this whole idea of, again, looking at Nico's diagram of the rich ecosystem. You know, I've talked about for years the idea of not just having an academy for technology, health, or whatever. I said, I want a whole school that's just an esports school that does exactly kind of what you're talking about. But again, not having to charge for a master's level degree or a bachelor's or something.
You'll see in our paper they exist, but not in the United States. They exist there's several of them in France.
Well, my French is terrible, but I took like 7 years of French. Like between seventh grade and college, I took so much French, and I'm sure that if I was forced to, I would be okay. But Dr. Seth Jenny, is there anything else that we should be looking for on the horizon here, or anything that you wish to share that's something we didn't get out in today's episode?
I guess two things. Well, I'll finish off with before you talked about, I'm getting requests or questions about if I want to try to get a master's or doctoral degree and I can focus it on esports, where do I go and who can I work with and what programs will accept me? And so I thought about that question and I wrote down a few notes here, and let me go through some of these things quickly because I think that some people will be interested in that, and I'm getting some of these requests, and I think you are as well. So the first thing would be look into programs that are offering esports degree, either minors, certificates, or a bachelor's or master's degrees. You can do some of the preliminary research, or you can wait until the paper comes out, because certainly they're going to have faculty and connections within the industry and experience in esports. The second thing I would recommend would be looking at research papers on esports specific to the area that is interesting to you. So whether it's sports psychology or exercise physiology or marketing or management, whatever it be, and look at the authors, see where they teach, and then contact them. Ask them what opportunities they may offer for you to do graduate level work with them so that you could continue in doing research on esports. The Esports Research Network is another organization that I was a founding member of. It's esportsresearch.net is their website. That's a collection of esports researchers from all around the world that covers all the different fields of the ecosystem. So I encourage you to take a look and try to contact them. There are a few esports research centers out there. So the New York Institute of Technology has a center for esports medicine. If exercise science, you mentioned Lindsay and GamerDoc there. She's actually a graduate of NYIT.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
University of Limerick, Esports Research Lab. I'm assuming you've had either Adam or Mark, one of those guys on.
I've talked with Adam. I want to get Adam on.
Sure.
I talked about it we met at UCI conference a couple of years ago. So yeah.
So they do a lot of cognition related research relating to esports, but exercise science related, that is in Ireland. I actually, during my undergrad, I spent a semester at the University of Limerick there. There is a research center for esports law in University of Augsburg in Germany. So if law is your area of interest, they seem to do, their website at least is in English and German. So it seems like there's some people who do also speak English there. If law is an interest to you, reaching out to people that are posting on Twitter and LinkedIn relating to research, and then Discord channels. I'm a member of the Global Esports Education Discord, which I don't know if you're even aware of. I should probably send you an invite, shouldn't I?
No, yes, please do, yes.
It's a collection of people who are essentially doing a degree program relating to esports, or they have a major interest in it. And so I've found out information about some of the research that I'm doing through posting questions on there. And then there's also a Discord on from the Esports Research Network too. So if you do some legwork, you will find some avenues for advanced study in esports. And as an example, I had a student reach out to me from Europe because he was a research participant of mine, and he was an exercise science focused guy who wanted to do a PhD. And it looks like I recommended him to he lives in the UK, and I recommended him to contact a few people, and it looks like he's going to end up trying to do a PhD at Staffordshire.
Nice.
And it's not like they have a PhD in esports. So you have to contact these faculty members and see whether they'd be willing to do research in your preferred area, because usually it's the other way around. It's right. You're coming to this program and you're going to do research on the faculty members' interests. So that needs to be a discussion well before, and you just cross your fingers that faculty member doesn't leave the institution while you're there.
I know that feeling. Again, I'm on borrowed time with getting mine done. So
yeah.
But Dr. Seth Jenny, this was fascinating. Again, from a different perspective. Again, they can reach you at Dr. Seth Jenny on Twitter. I'll put a link for that into the show notes as well. And I know you're on LinkedIn as well. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
I appreciate the invitation. Thanks so much.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.